Hello and welcome to TakeaSide, the sports talk show that lets you, the viewer, choose our winners. I'm your guest host, Max McElroy. I'm taking over for the show today while Jacob is currently out getting his COVID-19 vaccine. Be sure to hop on sided.co and climb the leaderboard for your chance to win a $25 Amazon gift card. Shout out to last week's winner, Philip Muniz, on taking home the top prize. We have a great show for you today, and to start us off, we are going to discuss some NBA basketball. As the regular season is coming to a close, it gets more and more clear which teams are legitimate title contenders. The Eastern Conference is shaping up to be very competitive as we draw closer to the postseason. It feels that the Philadelphia 76ers and the Brooklyn Nets have pulled ahead in the East, as both teams are going to be competing to represent their conference in the finals. I'm here with Matt Munier and Jack McGard to debate which Eastern Conference team is better, the 76ers or the Nets.
First off, I'm going to go with the Nets, and I don't even think it's that close, to be honest. I'm just going to name off some guys in their team. You got KD, former MVP, former champion. You got Kyrie Irving, former champion. You got James Harden, also former MVP. All three guys are certified ballers. Plus, you got LaMarcus Aldridge, who they added in buyout. Plus, Blake Griffin, who they also got added in buyout. This team is loaded, and I don't see how the Sixers can top that.
Well, yeah, you're right. I mean, they do have two MVPs, Kyrie, a former champion, and they also have two other All-Stars in Griffin and Aldridge. I agree. That's a loaded roster. But the problem is with the Nets, I don't think we'll see all five of them on the court at the same time anymore. With Kyrie taking personal days, I don't even know what he's taking off for at this point. Harden's hurt now. KD's coming off an injury. He looks good, but I still think he could re-aggravate it, especially with Irving out right now, and KD's going to have a bigger role in the lineup. I think he could re-aggravate that injury. I think Griffin and Aldridge are almost too old at this point to trust for a full rest of the season. I think one of them is going to get hurt at some point. So I think if you look at that starting five that they have, it's great, but I don't know if we'll see them at the same time on the court.
Well, I think you look at you got Kyrie, Harden, and Durant, KD. They've only played 7 games together this season. If they're still 36-17, only half a game back from the Sixers this season. So even if one or maybe two of them are out, they still have enough firepower. KD, Kyrie, and Harden are all MVP candidates every single year pretty much, at least in the top 10. Maybe not Kyrie, but definitely KD and Harden. They're always in the top 5 every year. So I think even if say, like Kyrie or Harden's out, I think KD, he would really propel that team. And I think if one or two of them are hurt, they can still do well.
I think the 76ers are just better this year because I think in the playoffs, the number one thing is defense. The Nets do not play defense whatsoever. They give up the highest points per game in the league. Although they score the highest points per game in the league, they give up almost nearly the same amount of points. So when it comes down to it, if the Nets do not find their shot in the playoffs, their defense can't help them. Like most teams in the playoffs, if they can't find their shot, their defense gets a steal, they get some fast break points, and they get their offense back rolling. But the Nets cannot do that because they don't have a defense.
I think if you look both of the teams, I think that the Nets, they get more offensive firepower than the Sixers. I mentioned this once times, but the big three, KD, Kyrie, and Harden. I think that's way better than Joel Embiid. Yes, he's an MVP candidate. He's very good. Better than Simmons and Harris. They've been good, but they're not like big three caliber. Such as the Nets' big three. So I think their offense, even though their defense isn't as well, I think their offense can definitely propel them. And most likely they'll be playing, well, hopefully we'll be playing in the maybe conference finals. We'll see if they both get the 1-2 seeds. But, yeah, I think the Nets have enough offensive firepower, even with their lackluster defense, to take out any team that comes in their way.
I just think with the Nets, I think with injuries, when you look at injuries and you look at their defense, I think there are going to be teams that give them trouble. I know that they have so much firepower and they're a great team. I'm going to give you that. Their roster is insane. But I think when you don't have a defense like that, it doesn't matter who it is. I mean, the playoffs are a different breed. I mean, it doesn't matter who the team is. They're going to give them troubles if you don't have a defense, especially teams like I think the Heat are going to be sneaky this year. I think teams that are proven in the playoffs are going to exploit that defense. And if you don't have a defense, I think you're really going to get hurt in the playoffs.
I think the one good thing that helps them also in the playoffs, the Nets, is they have a lot of experience. Of course, you got two champions in Kyrie and KD. He's been in playoffs many, many years. So I think it'll be interesting to see if these two match up in the playoffs. They're currently one against each other, and they play tomorrow night, so we'll see. But with that, we'll send it to commercial and we'll be right back.
From adversity, we rose. We made history and became pioneers, voyagers, champions, Jayhawks. And when our chant rises, haunting and hallowed, Jayhawks are telling the world what's near. Victory.
Welcome back. For our next debate, we are going into the world of racing. With the recent reintroduction of racing their Cup cars on dirt, NASCAR has called into question which surface makes for better racing, the commonly used asphalt tracks or the dirt tracks. Asphalt tracks are seen basically every level of the sport, where dirt tracks are more commonly found in lower series events. But is this something that should be changed in the future? I am joined by Blake Sevenbergen and Emma House to debate which track is better for the future of stock car racing.
So, NASCAR just reintroduced dirt racing back with their race at Bristol. The first race, well, I guess they didn't really do dirt racing, and they stopped it in the 70s and they started it back up. So that really calls into question, is dirt racing better or is asphalt better?
I'm definitely going to have to go down the dirt route. I grew up dirt racing fan, but I've never seen it on NASCAR. The Bristol race was my first ever dirt race that I've seen Cup cars race on, and I loved it. And one of the main reasons I loved it was how much skill it takes to win in that car on dirt. I mean,
Absolutely.
Pavement racing or asphalt racing is almost always just, a little bit of the follow the leader, bump drafting, passes every once in a while. Dirt kept me on my toes. I felt like I was watching the whole race, seeing something different every single lap. There's not that strict bump drafting that you see on asphalt racing because the cars are half sideways going through the turns, which leaves it not up to chance and luck going through there. You have to be the best driver to win that race.
Well, I am going to say something a little bit different. There's two different things when it comes to asphalt. So you got old asphalt and young asphalt. So old asphalt is, I guess young asphalt is what we see when you have Daytona, Talladega, Darlington, all those long races where you're going to get a lot of speed, which is what racing is about. It's about speed. So you're going to see them go 200 miles an hour. But then you go to the tracks like Atlanta where you have the old asphalt where it's all grooves. You've got multiple lines that drivers can run, rubbers everywhere all over the track, and that makes for better racing because you've got multiple grooves that they can go on. You see a lot more passing, a lot more action, and you also have short tracks that are introduced, such as Bristol when they do the asphalt on Bristol, Richmond, Martinsville, all those. You're going sideways in the turn. I mean, those banks are ridiculous, especially like at Bristol, you're like sideways basically. So, it's kind of a which one is better because it's more, you've got some more grooves and more passing that goes on in asphalt. When you get to the 1.5 miles, yes, you do get kind of the person in front and they kind of just go around and win the race. But when you get to short tracks or, super speedways, you've got a lot more.
Yeah, I can't disagree with that. I think the smaller tracks in NASCAR, asphalt or dirt, are more entertaining. I just think, the dirt, it's so much fun. It's high-speed action, something different every single lap. And plus, it takes an entirely different type of setup to race on dirt because the track is changing almost every lap. Different weather, wind, humidity, rain predictions, everything affects what you're going to do to your race car to put on the track.
Yeah, I will say one thing that I do like about asphalt is it is a little bit safer. We have seen with NASCAR, especially, there's been a couple fatalities, the most famous being Dale Sr. back in 2001. And even though they've had so many different safety improvements, including the neck brace, the roll cage, everything that they do, I think the staying with the asphalt and taking away that kind of dirt aspect has allowed them to be a lot more safer, especially when they are going 200 miles an hour. I mean, you're going faster on asphalt, and that's just the plain and simple fact is you're going a lot faster on asphalt, you're doing a lot more racing, your reaction time has got to be better, and you've got to be a better skill driver, I guess. And so I think with safety, especially because you don't want any more fatalities in the sport, you have to stick with asphalt.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, these drivers know every single time they get into a race car, they're risking their life. That's stated. That's a given. I mean, it's dangerous sport. All racing is dangerous. But, on dirt, they're going slower. Mm-hmm. And so I just think, safety is important, yes. But the dirt, I feel like, might be safer in the long run than the asphalt because of how much slower they're going. They're not going 200 miles an hour on a high-bank Daytona track at Bristol, I can tell you that much.
Yeah, that is true. But I will say that they did have a problem back in the Bristol, when they did Bristol Dirt, the trucks. They had to stop the race because they couldn't see anything. Their windshields were completely covered in mud. They had absolutely no way of seeing anything going on in the track in front of them, and it was an extremely dangerous situation. They eventually stopped the race.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, obviously, it's nice to see NASCAR going in a different direction, bringing in new fans. So I'm excited to see what will happen in the future. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back.
For students searching for a way to stay active in an outdoorsy way, the City of Lawrence has bike trails running in every direction, and with the new bike share program, we can stay in shape as we tour the sights of our beautiful city. Clinton Lake is only a short 30-minute bike ride away from Daisy Hill and has the most incredible sunset location in all of Lawrence. Walking campus may give you the KU calves, but biking can give you the KU thighs. Bike Lawrence today.
Welcome back to TakeaSide. Before we get to our last debate, let's check the current polls on sided.co to see what the users are voting for on our debates today. It is almost an even split between the Nets and the 76ers, with 17 total votes counted. Sided users seem to be split when it comes to the top teams in the East. Now looking at our second debate, it appears that most of the world agrees with Emma and that asphalt tracks are better for the sport by getting over 90% of the votes from the sided users, with 21 votes counted. These debates, along with hundreds of others, are available on sided.co and the Sided Debates app. Be sure to vote and comment along with us and put up your own debates as well. Now moving on for our third and final debate, we are discussing how the NCAA's rule changes on eligibility are affecting college basketball. Due to the pandemic in 2020, the NCAA ruled that all athletes were granted an extra year of eligibility regardless of how much time each athlete played. This also has had an effect on the transfer portal, as now over 2,000 names are projected to be in the portal, which is increased by 200 from the year 2019. I am joined by Maya Peterson and Ryan Atchison to debate if these rule changes are good for college basketball.
Well, thanks, Max. Well, it's kind of interesting with the college basketball season just ending last week with Gonzaga winning the national championship. But now we're seeing a lot of players, especially bench players who are not getting much playing time, starting to move elsewhere. But even then, a lot of starters are even moving. And this causing this controversy of, is college basketball starting to become a free agency? And it really is. I mean, if you look at the numbers, just 2018 had 1,800, 2019, 1,900, now 2,000 in projected to be in the transfer portal. You know, the question is college basketball starting to become a big recruiting frenzy and stacking teams? Are we starting to see that now?
See, for myself, I think it's really interesting how the players are getting that second choice. I think the penalty for them to have to be benched a year coming to a new team is terrible. And for this year, it just makes sense for them to be able to have their eligibility, be able to choose a different team, because we've all been through a rough year. You know, the pandemic has had a lot of things happening in the locker room, and then that being transitioned into on the court and off the court. And players deserve to be able to say, I don't like it here, I want to play though, so I'm just going to move to the next team. So why do you think it holds them back? Why is it a bad thing for the transfer portal?
I think it's a bad thing because when you're seeing college players commit to one school, they're saying, I'm going to commit to this school. This is the school I want to go to. But when they don't like it, and then even starters like, for example, Mac McClung, he's entering the NBA draft, he's saying, I want out because my coach is leaving. And I understand coaches leaving, that's not what you signed up to be, of course. But when you're seeing starters move across the portal, you know, it's showing, is this going to be a fair game? You know, are we just recruiting players just to stack teams to win a national championship? You know, is this fair for players that they don't get to sit out, that they can just wind up going to a different school and make an impact? And now is this competitive? Is this an advantage for other teams?
Well, it's competitive, and beyond the teams, it's a risk for the player. When you enter into the transfer portal, you don't know if a team's going to pick you up. You don't know if you're going to get another D1 offer, or maybe you're going to fall within the ranks like we just said. There's 2,000 players within that transfer portal. Within those, you have a top 25. Brady Manning from Oklahoma is in that transfer portal. You mentioned Matt McClung, but I mean, he's really declaring for the draft, and we can be honest, he's probably going to get picked, so he won't have to really go through the whole transfer portal process. But then you're looking at other players like Adam Miller, that's from Illinois, and he is an amazing player, 12 points per game, 6 assists per game. But because he's on a team that doesn't have a lot of people around him to make sure that we can see his game where he can go 15 points a game or maybe 17 points, he doesn't feel wanted. Take it a step further, like I was saying, a toxic environment. You have Christian Bishop from Creighton. Are you telling me he shouldn't want out of Creighton this year? Not just because playing time and things, but their coach. Players deserve to be able to choose a different team that's going to have a better environment, whether it's teammates, whether it's physical playing time, or it's just going to make their lives better. But it's a risk that they're taking. It's not going to really affect stacking a team because you can't do that.
So you mentioned Adam Miller, and Adam Miller was either a role bench player or starter on that Illinois squad. And that Illinois squad was top 3 in the nation, hands down. But are you saying that even though the Adam Miller is planning on moving, and if they're allowing to transfer, is it fair for teams to just recruit these players? Because college coaches are starting to recruit. They now have to focus on recruiting transfers on top of freshmen. That's making it hard for coaches to figure out what lineup can I go with. And a lot of these smaller schools are having a hard time trying to pitch for those players. Like you're seeing, think like a Detroit Mercy, a team that's really small school. How are they going to be able to get these players and develop players? Because when you freshmen, especially on like for KU example, you have 3 freshmen starting to transfer, and obviously it's college. It's hard. It's hard to become a starter in college basketball. It really is, and sometimes you have to sit to learn, to develop, and then when they don't get that chance to develop, they could go somewhere else, and they may not be able to develop and become a starter. They may be in the same situation again, where they're sitting on the bench. So that I don't see that this new rule changes are going to make the game of college basketball much better. And now the NBA's got to get rid of the one and done rule too, if that's going to happen. Because a lot of players are just going to be like, hey, I just want to go to college just to get experience and then just go on. And then it's just not making the game of college basketball, it's not becoming what it wants to be.
Well, I think the one and done rule and the transfer portal are completely 2 different arguments, because the one and done rule is more of like people are choosing to go to the G League now, and that has nothing really to do with the transfer portal. The transfer portal is a risk that the player is taking, and for smaller schools, if you're not able to get a D1 player, you weren't able to get the D1 player when they were coming out of high school. So we shouldn't fault the players for a small school not being able to have access to them when their talents say, I should be at another D1 school, or JUCO prospects don't want to go to that small school. But then again, you have smaller players like Hamilton coming out of UNLV, and he's a senior. He's about to be a senior guard. He hasn't done anything within his first 3 years to say, I can go to a March Madness. I sat through the building period. I sat here and tried to figure out, where do I fit into this offense? I'm doing great for myself, but we're not winning. So are we going to say, put ourselves in the player's shoes and say, okay, well, I'm a senior and I really want to go to the NBA draft, but the team that I'm with is not going to ever get exposure on the level that maybe a Duke would have. In the Blue Bloods conversation is something else, but maybe going to KU will help me get exposure as a player. We have to remember, beyond these 4 years, these players are trying to brand themselves for the NBA draft. They're trying to get their talents to be up and for scouts to see them. And we're seeing that within our own program with Ochai and Jalen Wilson. They want to see what else is out there. So we can't fault the players for a transfer portal for them wanting better options.
Well, that's all the time we have. We're going to throw it to Max just for some shout-outs and to end the show.
For joining us. Be sure to follow us on all social media at TakeaSide KU, and of course go on to sided.co or the Sided Debates app to create your own debates and to vote and to discuss with other users. I had fun hosting today, but I look forward to having Jacob back in the studio next week. Thank you for tuning in today, and we will see you again soon.